If you've been doing the standing quad stretch, the one where you grab your ankle behind you and balance on one leg, I need you to hear this before your next stretch session. The problem isn't your knee, it's your hip. And after working with patients in their 70s, 80s, and beyond for more than 2 decades, I can tell you that this particular stretch causes more quiet hip strain than almost anything else people do at home. Today, I'm going to show you a supported version that feels safer immediately, plus a 2-second check you can use right now to know if you've been doing it in a way that quietly overloads the front of your hip. I'm also going to explain a specific pain pattern that tells you the stretch is doing harm instead of good, and most people miss this completely because they assume the discomfort is just tightness. It's not. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have a simple 7-day plan to keep your hips mobile without that risky wobbling and yanking that so many people fall into without realizing it. Before we go any further, I'd love to know who's watching today. Drop your age in the comments and let me know where you're joining from. If you're a caregiver watching this for a parent or someone you look after, just comment the word caregiver so I know you're here too. This helps me understand who I'm reaching and what topics matter most to you. Now let me explain why this stretch, one that seems so innocent, can quietly strain the hip after age 70, and why it often has nothing to do with the knee at all. When you stand on one leg and reach back to grab your ankle, you're asking your body to do 2 demanding things at once. You're asking it to balance on a single leg, which already requires your hip muscles to fire in a coordinated way, and you're asking it to pull that other leg backward while holding the ankle, which creates a strong stretch through the front of the thigh and into the hip. Here's where things go wrong. When the hip is even slightly stiff, which is incredibly common after 70, or when the glute muscles on the standing leg aren't stabilizing properly, the pelvis starts to rotate and tip forward. You might not even notice it happening. What you feel is that you need to arch your low back to get the stretch, or you let your knee drift outward because that's the only way the leg will go back far enough. Maybe you've felt this yourself. You're stretching after a walk, standing in the hallway, and you grab your ankle behind you. You wobble a little. You grip harder. You yank the ankle up higher to really feel the stretch. And then suddenly there's a sharp pinch right at the front of your hip, almost in the crease where your leg meets your body, or deep in the groin. That pinch is not the stretch working. That pinch is the front of your hip being jammed and compressed because the pelvis tipped, the back arched, and the tissues at the front of the hip got caught in the middle. In a moment, I'll show you exactly how to check whether you're doing this. But I want you to understand the mechanism first, because once you see it, you won't unsee it. The front of the hip contains structures that don't appreciate being pinched repeatedly: the hip flexor tendons, the joint capsule, and in some cases the labrum, which is the ring of cartilage around the hip socket. When you do an unsupported quad stretch with poor alignment, you're essentially squeezing those structures while also asking them to lengthen. That's a recipe for irritation. And because the irritation builds slowly, many people don't connect it to the stretch. They think they have a hip problem when really they have a stretching problem. This is the part most people miss. Let me give you the 2-second safety check I promised, and I want you to do this with me right now if you're somewhere you can stand safely. Find a counter, a sturdy chair back, or a wall you can touch with one hand. Stand next to it and just place your fingertips on the surface for light support. Now, without grabbing your ankle yet, simply stand tall and notice your posture. Your hips should be facing straight forward, your ribs should be down rather than flaring out, and your low back should have a gentle, natural curve, not a big arch. This is your starting position. Now here's the check. With your hands still on the support, try to bring one heel back toward your glute by bending that knee, but don't grab the ankle, just let the leg float back. If you can do this while keeping your hips square, your ribs down, and without your low back arching dramatically, then you might be ready for a supported quad stretch. But if your knee immediately drifts outward, if your back arches, if your pelvis tips forward, or if you feel a pinch at the front of the hip just from this small movement, then you're not ready to do the traditional version, supported or otherwise. You need the alternative I'm about to show you. That was the 2-second check. Hips forward, ribs down, no arch, no pinch. If any of those fail, stop and switch to the safer method. This single check can save you from weeks of hip irritation. Now, let me show you the safer approach. And this is the centerpiece of everything we're covering today. There are actually two versions I want to give you, and you can pick the one that fits your body best. The first version is the supported standing quad stretch, done correctly. Stand beside a counter or a sturdy rail and place one hand on it firmly, not just fingertips, but a real grip so you feel stable. Now, with your standing legs slightly soft at the knee, reach back with your other hand and take hold of your ankle or the top of your foot. Here's what matters. Before you pull at all, tuck your pelvis, just slightly, as if you're trying to flatten your low back against an imaginary wall behind you. Keep your ribs down. Keep both hips pointing straight ahead. Your knees should stay close together, almost touching. Now, gently, and I mean gently, draw your heel toward your glute. You should feel a stretch in the front of your thigh, somewhere between your knee and your hip. That's the quadriceps. That's where the stretch belongs. If you feel a pinch in the crease of your hip or deep in the groin, you've gone too far or your pelvis has tipped. Ease off, reset your tuck, and try a smaller range. Breathe normally. Hold for 15 to 20 seconds if it feels comfortable, then slowly release. That's the supported version done right. The support isn't just for balance. It's there so you can focus on alignment instead of wobbling. Now, if even this version bothers your hip, or if you have trouble reaching your ankle, try this instead. Lie on your side on a firm surface, like a carpeted floor or a yoga mat. Your bottom leg can be slightly bent for stability. Take a towel or a long strap and loop it around the top of your top foot, holding both ends of the towel in your hand. Now, keeping your hips stacked and your pelvis neutral, gently pull the towel to draw your heel toward your glute. This version takes balance completely out of the equation. You're lying down, you're stable, and because you're on your side, it's much easier to keep the pelvis from tipping forward. You control the stretch with the towel, so there's no yanking. This is the version I recommend if you've had any hip pinching, any groin discomfort, or if your balance isn't reliable enough for standing stretches. Do this with me right now if you're able. If you're sitting, that's fine, just visualize it. But if you can lie on your side safely, grab a towel, loop it around your foot, and try a gentle pull. Feel where the stretch goes. It should be in the front of the thigh, not the hip crease. That's your target zone. Here's the pain pattern I mentioned earlier, and I want you to really internalize this because it's your body's way of telling you something is wrong. When a quad stretch is working correctly, you feel a pulling sensation along the front of your thigh, from just above the knee up toward the middle of the thigh. That's the muscle lengthening. That's normal. But if you feel a sharp pinch right in the hip crease, a deep ache in the groin, a catching sensation like something is getting stuck, or a feeling that your hip might give way, those are stop signs. Don't push through them. They're not tightness. They're signals that the hip joint or the structures around it are being compressed or irritated. If you experience any of those, release the stretch immediately, reduce your range of motion, and switch to the supported or side-lying version I just described. If the pinching keeps happening even with modifications, or if you notice it during walking or stair climbing, it's time to see a physical therapist or your doctor for an evaluation. This isn't about being overly cautious. It's about respecting what your body is telling you. And while I'm on the topic of warning signs, let me briefly mention the urgent red flags that require immediate medical attention regardless of what you're doing. If you ever experience chest pain, fainting, severe shortness of breath, sudden new one-sided weakness or numbness, new confusion, a sudden severe headache, or any symptoms that resemble a stroke, stop everything and seek urgent care right away. These are not related to stretching specifically, but I always want to remind viewers that certain symptoms require immediate action. Now, back to the hip. I want to give you a 7-day plan that builds hip mobility safely, without the risky positions that cause trouble. This plan is designed to be simple, sustainable, and protective of your hips. You're going to do these movements most days, ideally once in the morning and once later in the day if you have time. Each session takes about 5 to 7 minutes. The first movement is what I call the supported hip flexor reset. Stand facing your counter or a sturdy chair back with both hands resting on it. Step one foot back about 12 inches. keeping both feet pointing forward. Your front knee will be slightly bent, your back leg straighter. Now, here's the key. Instead of pushing your hips forward, which would arch your back and jam the hip, I want you to tuck your pelvis gently underneath you, as if you're scooping your tailbone forward. You'll feel a mild stretch at the front of your back hip, right where the thigh meets the body. Keep your ribs down. Breathe. Hold this for 10 to 15 seconds, then switch sides. This movement teaches your body to extend the hip without arching the back, which is exactly the skill that prevents strain during other stretches. The second movement is the glute set with step back. Stand with your hands on the counter. Shift your weight onto your left leg. Now squeeze your right glute firmly, and while keeping that squeeze, take a tiny step back with the right foot just 6 inches or so. The step back combined with the glute squeeze creates hip extension in a controlled way. Your pelvis stays stable because the glute is doing its job. Hold for a breath, step forward, relax, and repeat 3 or 4 times before switching to the other leg. This builds the hip control you need to do standing stretches without strain. The third movement is a gentle seated figure 4 hold, but only if it doesn't cause pinching. Sit in a sturdy chair with your feet flat on the floor. Cross one ankle over the opposite knee, letting the bent knee fall gently outward. If this is comfortable, you can lean your trunk forward just slightly to deepen the stretch in the outer hip. But here's the rule. If you feel any pinching at the front of the bent hip, stop immediately. That pinch means the position is compressing the joint, and it's not the right stretch for you. If figure 4 causes trouble, substitute a supine knee-to-chest stretch instead. Lie on your back, bring one knee toward your chest, and hold it with both hands. Keep the other leg extended or slightly bent on the floor. This stretches the hip without the rotational demand that causes pinching for some people. The fourth component isn't a stretch at all. It's a breathing and rib control cue that you'll use during all your stretches. Before you begin any stretch, take a breath in through your nose, and as you exhale, feel your ribs drop down and your belly gently flatten. This sets your rib cage in a position that prevents your back from arching. Maintain that rib position throughout the stretch. This single cue transforms how stretches feel because it keeps the pelvis stable and protects the hip. Use this every time. For the first 3 or 4 days, do each movement just once through, with short holds of 10 to 15 seconds. As you feel more comfortable and confident, you can add a second round or extend your holds to 20 or 30 seconds. The goal isn't to push harder. The goal is to build the habit and the body awareness that keeps your hips safe long term. Let me walk through the common mistakes I see, because knowing what to avoid is just as important as knowing what to do. The first mistake is yanking the ankle. When people want to feel a deeper stretch, they pull their heel toward their glute with a sharp tug. This creates a sudden spike of tension that the hip isn't prepared for, and it often causes the very pinching we're trying to avoid. The fix is simple. Pull slowly and gently, as if you're reeling in a fishing line with patience, not jerking a rope. The second mistake is arching the low back. This happens almost automatically when people reach back for their ankle, and it tips the pelvis forward, compressing the front of the hip. The fix is to tuck the pelvis before you pull and keep the ribs down throughout. The third mistake is twisting the pelvis. If your hips rotate so that one side is forward and one is back, you're no longer stretching the quads symmetrically, you're wringing the hip joint and irritating the tissues. The fix is to face a mirror or a wall and make sure both hips stay pointing straight ahead. The fourth mistake is letting the knee drift outward. When the bent knee swings away from the standing leg, it rotates the thigh bone in a way that can pinch the hip. The fix is to keep both knees close together, as if you're holding a piece of paper between them. The fifth mistake is balancing without support. I see people do this in the park, in their living room, even in the kitchen, grabbing their ankle and wobbling while they try to stretch. Every wobble is a moment when the pelvis tips and the hip gets compressed. The fix is obvious. Use support, always. There's no prize for balancing during a stretch. The sixth mistake is holding your breath. When you hold your breath, your body tenses, your ribs flare, and your pelvis loses its stable position. The fix is to breathe slowly and continuously, exhaling as you ease into the stretch. The seventh mistake is stretching cold. especially after sitting for hours. When you've been in a chair for a long time, your hip flexors are shortened and your joint is stiff. Jumping straight into a quad stretch can shock the tissues and provoke a strain. The fix is to walk around for a few minutes first, or do some gentle marching in place before you stretch. These are the errors that turn a harmless stretch into a hip irritant. Now that you know them, you can catch yourself before the damage is done. I want to pause here and ask you something. When you stretch your quad, where do you actually feel it? Do you feel the stretch in the front of your thigh, the way it's supposed to feel? Or do you notice a pinch at the front of your hip, right in that crease where the leg meets the body? Drop your answer in the comments. This helps me know what topics to cover in future videos, and it might also help you realize something about your own body. If you've been feeling that pinch and assuming it was normal, I hope today's video has shown you that it's not. It's a sign that something in your alignment or technique needs to change. If this video has helped you think differently about stretching, or if you're going to try the supported version today, consider tapping the like button. It's a small thing, but it helps this video reach more people who need it, especially others over 70 who might be straining their hips without realizing it. And if you're not subscribed yet, consider joining this community so you don't miss the practical tips we cover each week. I want to close by summarizing what you've learned today and giving you a clear next step. You now know that the standing quad stretch, the one where you balance on one leg and grab your ankle, carries real risk for your hip after 70. The risk isn't the stretch itself. It's the way most people do it, wobbling, yanking, arching the back, letting the knee drift, and compressing the front of the hip without realizing it. You've learned the 2-second check, hips forward, ribs down, no arch, no pinch. If any of those fail, you're not ready for the unsupported version. You've learned the supported standing version with proper pelvic tuck. And you've learned the side-lying towel stretch as an alternative that removes balance from the equation entirely. You've learned the pain pattern that signals strain pinching in the hip crease, groin ache, catching, giving way, and you know that these are stop signs, not signs to push harder. You have a 7-day plan with the supported hip flexor reset, the glute set with step back, the seated figure 4 or supine knee to chest, and the breathing and rib control cue that makes every stretch safer. And you know the 7 common mistakes to avoid. Your action step is this. Try the supported version or the side-lying version today and pay attention to where you feel the stretch. If the hip pinch disappears, come back and tell me in the comments. That feedback matters. If the pinch persists even with modifications, or if you're noticing hip discomfort during walking or stairs, please see a physical therapist or your doctor. You deserve an evaluation, not just guesswork. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Moving well after 70 is absolutely possible, but it requires moving wisely. That means using support when you need it, respecting the signals your body sends, and choosing alignment over intensity every single time. I'll see you in the next video. Take care of those hips.